Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another amazing episode of the Positive Success Show. I have a fabulous guest with us today. Her name is Shannon Brome-Ward, and she is a money coach. I met Shannon through another friend, a mutual friend who's near and dear to my heart. Shannon, so awesome to have you here on the show. I'm over the moon right now.
Dawn, thank you so much for having me. This is so excited. How long has it been since we first met?
Oh gosh, we met last year, I think, and then the
Is
year
it?
just flew by. I think around this time last year. This is so crazy
Yeah.
how fast time goes. I meant to have Shannon on last year, but it's just like the time flew, and I'm like, wait, I need to do that podcast episode. So I'm really glad that we're able to connect today, and yeah, and just to learn from you, your story, how you got into money coaching, and just
Mhm.
your journey, like how yeah. So here's my first question, Shannon. um
Okay.
when you decided to become an entrepreneur and you started to decided to do money coaching, what was your process like? How did you get started? Like, what was your journey like for all the listeners that are aspiring entrepreneurs, are like, I want to start something cool but I don't know where to start? Like, can you give us some insight into what you were doing before, and then what led up to this whole next chapter of your life?
Yeah. Thank you. So I was in corporate pharma for about 20 years, and I was pretty high up in corporate pharma. I was traveling quite extensively for a very long time. And I enjoyed the work. I wouldn't say that I didn't at all, but I knew that I wanted to do something different. And I wasn't spending the amount of time that I wanted to spend with my boys before I knew that they would eventually leave, right? I know they don't actually leave and never come back, but the idea was, before they go to university, I wanted to make sure that I was really putting in the quality time, but also being there more for them and with them. And so there was this opportunity to consider leaving corporate pharma and doing something else. And leading up to the time when the opportunity arose, I was thinking about, well, what else can I do? What can I do so that I could work from home, so that I could be closer to my boys, not travel as much, and I started toying around with some ideas, but nothing was entirely concrete. But when the opportunity presented itself, then I got serious. Then I got serious about, okay, Shannon, like, are you going to do this? You only have this one opportunity, the timeline. So are you going to take the leap? And so, I started putting my ducks in a row, and I have to tell all the folks, I was scared out of my mind. I didn't know anything about entrepreneurship. Everyone I knew had done like the academic route. And so everybody worked for someone, like they worked in a corporate environment. And so you didn't go out on your own. That was way too risky. And you also didn't give up your salary, your benefits, your so-called security, right? You had, invested in this education and this training and expertise. So you don't walk away from all of that to say, okay, let me try something. And so, although I had a lot of supportive people around me, I know that many of them thought I was nuts, right? Like they were like, even my parents who were like, because if you think about being like old school, they're like, hey, they emigrated, and the idea was, you go to school, you get that education, you go as far as you can with that education. You don't go off and wing it by yourself, right? So it really didn't make sense to them. But
Yeah.
I was like, look, this is what I wanted to do. So although incredibly timid about it and really fearful, actually, I decided to take the leap. And so that was in March of 2020 when I said, okay, I'm going to start my money coaching practice. And I really looked at a lot of my skill sets. Like, I did not have a background in finance. I did not have, what people think, like I wasn't a financial planner, financial advisor. I didn't have a degree in economics, nothing. What I did have, though, was I had this skill that I was able to manage money and build money and grow my money without any formal training. And I knew a lot of people who had a lot of difficulty doing that. And so being able to, and I helped, friends and family over the years, like, oh, let me help you, whether it was start a budget or start investing or manage your money in a different way, or, things like that. So I was always interested in how people made their money work for them. And so I would help people do that. But I didn't even think that this was something you could do for a living. Like, that didn't make sense to me, right? Like, I was like, isn't this something that everybody knows? And I noticed that there were a lot of people who were making, pretty good money, but they were really worried about it. They hadn't saved. They didn't know how to save. They didn't understand how to invest. Like, the financial industry, they love to throw all these terms out and make it seem really confusing. And it's like, it's not that confusing, but they set it up in such a way that it's intimidating. Right. And so I was like, you know what, there's a simpler way to do this. And I know a lot of people are working really hard. There's absolutely no reason that they should be stressed out about their money and that they shouldn't have any money. Like, you shouldn't work all of these years and, commit all of your time to end up with nothing. Right. And it wasn't because they were like big spenders necessarily or careless with their money. They just didn't know how to be smart about the money with some really simple tools that they needed to, like, hey, did you know that you can invest just this little amount and it can grow? And I think I really realized that when I always tell the story that I started investing with $12.50 every 2 weeks, and how that was like a big deal, by the way. And I was investing this $12.50 every 2 weeks, and I never added to it, but I always, and I still have that account today, which is hilarious. And it's well over 6 figures. And it's solely because I knew how to invest and I was consistent. It wasn't because I had a lot of money. It wasn't because I was making a lot of money, and $25 a month, right? And so most people can do that to start and beyond, but you got to know what you're doing. And once I realized, hey, I can help folks out with this, then I was like, okay, let's transition into this role, because it was just really fulfilling for me.
Oh, I love it. I love that something that came so easy to you. Like, because you learned it and you've done it like for several years for family and friends. And you're like, oh, not everybody knows this. Like, this is what what a gift. What a gift. I want, as I'm listening to your story, can you like take us to the moment where like the opportunity presented itself? Like, what was the opportunity, and what was the light bulb moment for you? They're like, oh, I could teach people how to be smart with their money. Like, can you take us to that specific? I'm just like curious, because I'm like, it's so great. Like, I love what you do, and I love, like, the trajectory of it. But it's like, when you're moving into entrepreneurship and it's scary, and like you said, you put all your ducks in a row. Like, what was that?
Mm-hmm.
What was that thing where like, all right, I'm going to take a leap. I'm going to go. I'm going to do it.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I don't believe there was any one moment, but I could describe that what seems like the pinnacle. But there were things along the way from the very beginning. Like, I had a really confusing money story in my head. My parents were immigrants, and they emigrated because they wanted a better life. And when you emigrate for a better life from a place of poverty to somewhere where you can, improve your station in life, you never want to be poor again. And so they really did everything in their power to ensure that they would never be poor again. But what that does is it creates a lot of scarcity, right? So they had a couple of things that they were like non-negotiables that they would spend on. Like, they bought a home, they would spend on education, but everything else was frivolous, even fun, right? So I was walking into, coming out of school and adulthood and starting my career with this weird dynamic where it's like, okay, there's money for school and they have a home, but if you want to do something fun, no, you're broke. That's too expensive. Everything's too expensive, or they don't have the money. And so I also went to school with kids, though, that I saw that they talked about money very differently in their homes. And I was like, always curious about, like, how come they're never talking about they're broke? And they didn't live anywhere differently than I did, or how come they approached money differently, right? And understanding that took me on a journey. So coming out of college and grad school and realizing that, okay, now I have a job, I'm making some money, I went nuts. So I don't want anyone to think that I didn't get into debt. And that I didn't, I was a little frivolous. I'm not going to lie, I went crazy. And so I spent a lot of time cleaning up that debt. So it wasn't like, oh, I knew how to do everything right off the bat. No problem. I could teach the world. No, it took me a while to learn how to get out of debt, how to avoid getting back into debt, and then how to start making money. So that I wanted to give context to that part of the journey, because I didn't come out of the womb like knowing everything. Absolutely not. Shoot, no way. Lots of mistakes along the way too. But I didn't, when we talk about the opportunity for starting entrepreneurship, I create my own opportunities. So I knew I wanted to get out. And I know one of the key things is, if you want to change your life, if you want to change your circumstances, if you want to change where you are, it starts with you. It starts in your mind, right? And so I knew, like, hey, you are not happy traveling 3 times a month to Europe, and you come back and you're like a basket case, and you got to recover, turn around, pack the bags, go again. It was stupid. And so it was like the work was fulfilling, but it was like, it wasn't fulfilling for my entire life. And so I was like, I've got to make a change. Now, did I come up with this idea overnight? No. But what I did know is, like, hey, they're offering packages to people, and I raised my hand. But I was already thinking about it before. So I don't want anyone to think that this was an overnight decision. I walked up in there and walked out the door the next day. Absolutely not. I started planning. I started looking at, what does it mean to be an entrepreneur? What does it mean to have my own business? And how am I going to support myself with my husband and my family? Like, how are we going to do that? Right. So that required a lot of discussions, some internal discussions, you know what I mean, to prepare for that. And what I like to describe what I do now is my work optional life, right? I work, it's an option. I love it. I love what I do. I work how I want, when I want, where I want. But this didn't happen by pure happenstance. I've been doing this for a while. I plan this. And that's why when I work with, my clients, and I talk about, whether you're going to do something different, you're going to transition to that work optional life, you're going to retire early, whatever the case may be, let's start planning it now. And money is a big part of that. Mm-hmm. It's a big part of that. I'm not asking anybody to jump into entrepreneurship and be broke, because that doesn't make for a good environment for you to be creative, right? You have to have your basic needs met. So I think that's really important. So the pivotal moment for me was like, you're unhappy. You're going to make everybody unhappy. So you better get out of this. And what are you going to do?
No, it's great. No, thanks for giving all that context, because it's true. It's never just one moment. It's a confluence of events that happen throughout your life that lead you to that moment. When you think about it all. Oh, I love it. I love it, Shannon. It's just so good. I love listening to you talk and sharing your stories. So can you share with the listeners, what would be like a typical, like, who do you serve specifically, and how do you help them start the process of like planning for whatever it is that they want for their dream, or for the work option life, or whatever it is? Like, how do you walk us through, like, just maybe those initial steps about what you teach your clients, and ultimately what outcome you help them achieve?
Yeah. So I work with 2 sets of people in general. Like, I tend to work with 6-figure earners who want to pay off their debt, and start investing, right? So, and they have dreams of retiring early or transitioning to that work optional life. So these are the folks, that one set are the folks that are like, I know I make good money, but I don't know where my money's going. That is something that rings true to them month after month after month. And they know that, what? I'm making more money than I was making 10 years ago, and I'm no further ahead than where I was 10 years ago. So that's one set of people where we really get into, look, we've got to look at what's coming in and we've got to look at what's going out. And we have to decide what you value. Because when you know what you value, we're not talking about don't buy lattes or don't go on trips. I'm never one to say that. I hate that. But I'm always like, what do you value? What's important to you and your family and your partner? What is important to you? Because that's where we're going to direct our money. That's what we're going to spend on. That's what we're going to save for. That's what we're going to create more of. And the rest of the stuff will fall by the wayside because we don't care about it. And so it doesn't feel like a sacrifice. Yeah. So that's one group. The other group of folks I work with, and this is just strictly women who are six-figure earners or like entrepreneurs or in the C-suite, solely women who are now at a point where, yeah, I know where my money is. I know how to manage it. I just don't know what to do with the surplus. What do I do with the surplus? And that's so much fun because that's where I'm like, oh yeah, that's where we have those discussions where we're like, listen, you start investing it in various areas. And I invest, I'm a serial investor. Like I invest in all sorts of things. Yeah. So if you start investing your money over here and it starts making money for you, that's the key. And we keep doing that all over the place so that eventually, if you want to replace that income, that 9 to 5, that career, we got you set up. And this is how long it's going to take. And this is where you're going to be. And you're going to be making income from these 5 different things. And this is how you do it, right? So just for example, so it doesn't seem so vague, like, I invest in real estate. I invest in the stock market. I'm an angel investor in a company. I want to buy a franchise. Look, there's all these different things that I invest in and have been, and they create income for me. So what I do with, my coaching practice with my money coaching, that's not my sole income. Yeah. Right. It creates income and that's wonderful, but it's not my sole income. And that's what I teach those women. Once you get a handle of where your money's going, then we go into, now you make your money work for you.
Oh, so I'm if you're watching the YouTube, like I am furiously writing notes. I mean, okay, you got to rewind that part because what Shannon just dropped, it's like it's so on point, and you just blew my mind right now too. I'm like, oh, she said her coaching business is not her sole income. She has multiple streams of income coming from everywhere, which allows her to create that lifestyle. And Shannon, just as I'm listening to you, you're just like uberly confident. You know your stuff, and you have that air of like you're free. You have created freedom for yourself, and it shows. Like, so I'm like, I need to sign up for Shannon's class.
It's so funny because I watch people come to me, because most people come to me and they're not in great shape. Yeah. They're worried, they're stressed. They're like, I don't know what the heck to do. I've tried, and it's not working. And they see, by the time they come to me, a lot of the times, they're like, I've been making more money over the years and something's missing. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I want them to be able to sleep at night because they're not able to sleep at night because there's this undercurrent of stress and worry. And so the best thing for me is like, yeah, we can do all the metrics. Yes, they pay off debt and they start investing and their investments grow, and that's all wonderful. The best thing I can see on their faces is the peace. There's nothing like that. Like, it's immeasurable, right? Like, I don't know what, like, oh, and everybody's piece is different. Like, some people are like, oh, I finally made investments to $100,000. Great. Some people are like $10,000 in the bank saved. I've never saved 1,000, like whatever.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter. It's the peace of mind. They're like, I'm going to be okay.
Yeah. So
And
beautiful.
that's what's most important. That's the part that I love. But I have to say, I love that. And then I love talking to the women like, okay, where are we investing next? What are you thinking? And they come back and they're like, my investments are making this. I'm like, I know, mine too. Like, that's wonderful.
But I'm gonna send my spouse to you. Like, she's ready. She's got some,
It's
so,
great.
so amazing. Gosh, like there's so much to unpack there. And I mean, like this episode can go on forever, but I'm curious, Shannon, to hear what you would say or the advice you would give to an aspiring entrepreneur. They have some money, they don't have a lot of money, but the fear and the anxiety about making money in the business. That's like
Mm,
a lot of entrepreneurs get stuck in that. And what 50% of small businesses close within the first 5 years.
mhm.
What advice would you give them in terms of their, I guess, their money story, or like how do you get them from like in their head to like actually making the magic happen?
Yeah. Yeah. So first of all, you have to identify your money story. Like, you have to realize that you have a story and you have to be clear about it, right? And a lot of our stories are crazy. And the ones that are imposed upon us as women are really detrimental.
Yeah.
So you really have to sit down and be like, what do I think about money? Do I think rich people are bad? Do I think they're evil? Because sometimes when you think those things, you're going to make sure that you do not become that thing, right? So you have to identify your money story. Secondly, I always go back to your values. What are you doing this for? What is important to you? What do you care about? Because you can't, I mean, I guess you can. I couldn't have a business that I didn't care about. Like, then it's a job. I didn't want to create a job for myself that I hated. I didn't get that. So you got to know, like, why are you doing this? And who are you serving, right? And you're not only serving your client or customer or whomever, you're also serving yourself.
Yeah.
So you've got to feed both ends of that. You've got to feed your clients and your customers, and you've got to feed yourself. So that's really, really important. And the third thing is you're going to be scared. I've never invested in anything and I wasn't fearful. So if you think you're waiting for that moment, you're never going to get it. I'm scared all of the time. I'm making huge investments this year, for example, and I'm like, I don't know. I'm always scared.
Yeah.
That doesn't stop me though. It doesn't stop me. I continue, like, and I don't perseverate over it for very long. I understand the emotion because it's unknown.
Yeah. Yep.
Right?
Love it.
Also, for women, get in the community of other women who are doing what you want to do or what you intend to do, or who are doing the thing right now. Surround yourself with those women. Right? You got to be, like, that doesn't mean like ditch all your friends and family, but if if they don't get it, they're going to feed your fears. And only because they love you, only because they care about you, but they don't understand what you're trying to do necessarily. So surround yourself with other women that inspire you. That's really very important.
So good. Oh my gosh.
And they can ask me how I know, because I did all of these things I'm telling you to do.
No, I love it. I love it. I love this. I mean, it's just, very basic, things to do in life that you don't really learn until you get older, you get wiser. You're like, oh, if I want to go be a marathon runner, I need to go hang out with the runners. Or if I want to go make,
Right.
$100,000, got to be around people that know how to make $100,000.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's such great advice. I'm curious, Shannon, what has been a life-changing book that you read?
Oh my gosh.
It just left field for me. I'm curious. I'm like, I feel like I need to ask this question.
Oh geez. Does it have to pertain to business or anything like that?
Doesn't It doesn't. I mean, if you want it
Oh,
to,
come
sure, since
on.
we're on the topic of money, but it doesn't have to because life is.
I remember, this is so long ago, but it was the autobiography of Malcolm X. That was a life-changing book for me. And I think I was like, I think it's 7 or 8, like it was ages ago. And I remember thinking, wow. Because I remember it was this period where, like, I've always been a voracious reader, but there was this period where there was this little break where I was like kind of changing genres. Like I didn't really love the books. Like I'd outgrown the books that I read, but I was ready to like transition into like big girl books or something. I don't know what the heck I was thinking. And so there was a gap. And I remember clearly that there was this gap in time where I was like, none of these things are doing it for me. And I remember reading that book and being like, this is revolutionary. And it was like so impactful. Just, and it really, now when I think about it, now that we're talking about it, so thank you, just his transition throughout his life and how he just changed and always embraced change. From like, he was a criminal to this huge orator that led communities. It's fascinating how his life and the trajectory, and it was, cut down early, but just watching that change. And I was like, it's all in the mind, and him becoming literate and reading and learning and being around the right people for him made all the difference. So now that you just brought that up, I'm like, that was it. Thank you.
I get the goosebumps. No, because it's like I see the fire in your in your word. Like I feel you. Like I haven't met everybody. I haven't met Shannon in person. Like this is
I
how
know we haven't met.
via the internets, right?
Exactly.
And there's just so much there's so much truth and light to that. It's like what you just said, embracing change, and the words in his life and everything about it has really inspired you to be on this path, and it's just so beautiful to see. I never
Yes.
asked that question, by the way. I'm like, I'm
Oh,
curious.
really?
No, I never ask it. I'm like, I need to ask this question. um so Shannon, when you've made big investments, you've taken risk, all of these things, and things don't go your way, what do you do to keep moving forward?
Mm. I give myself sulk time. I sulk, and I have these bed days. Like I'll stay in bed. I don't care. I mean, it sucks, whatever's going on, it's not working. And I allow myself to feel it. But I also, I do some other things as well. Like I put a time limit on that. Like it's not like, oh, you can only be upset for 2 minutes. No, it's like, okay, you are allowed to embrace that this didn't work out according to plan. You are allowed to, feel badly about that and all of that. But I also know that I have resources. So I obviously have a coach, which is invaluable. So, I give myself that opportunity to evaluate what happened, right? What worked, what didn't work, what would I do differently, right? And I think part of that is, and I may feel a little bit more resilient to failure and errors and mistakes because I was a scientist by training. So everything you do flops and then it doesn't. So you go back and you do it again. What happened? What do we tweak? What do we do differently? What do we change, right? And you may feel embarrassed. Nobody's really paying it that much attention to you, though. So it doesn't matter. But you still feel embarrassed, right? We're humans, right? But nobody really cares. But you go through that gamut of emotions. And then, like I said, you have to do the analysis. Why didn't this work? You know what I mean? What part of it worked?
Mm-hmm.
And what are you going to do differently next time so that you can enhance that? And one of the things one of my coaches had said to me, I've been with this business coach for a really long time, and she said the time between when you decide to do something and when you implement it, the shorter you make that time, the more successful you'll be in terms of your business growth and your learning. And and it's true. Think about if you decide, oh, I think I'm going to try this, and then you second guess and you do things and you wait and you don't do, then you've already diluted the idea that you were so excited about. And then if you do eventually implement it, most of the time you don't, but if you do implement it, it's a watered down version of what you started with. Of course, it's not going to be as effective. Of course, it's not going to come out with the same verve and energy that came out in the beginning. You know what I mean? So one of the things that's why I kind of put some parameters around the failure. It's like, okay, complain, sulk, whine, now back up. Let's figure out what's going on, because you got to do it again. It's the only way you can learn.
Oh my God, no, it's so good. It's like masterclass in living. No, really, like I love that you brought your science, your science background into it. It's like it's an experiment and you're gonna figure out what
Yeah.
does it and you keep iterating. And I think that's just brilliant. Thank you for that. So good. So good. Knocking it out of the park, Shannon. So at this stage in your life, just to change gears, how do you define success? What does it mean to be successful? After you've had all of this great life experience, I'm just so good.
Yeah, I think there's so many ways to define success, but right now, because I'm doing something relatively new, like entrepreneurship, I think success for me is showing my kids that I'm starting something new and I'm not 20. And and I'm scared and it's a risk. And I don't know how it's going to work. And I'm learning new things. And I remember in the very beginning, because I have teenagers, they weren't teenagers, both of them at the time, but I'm like, okay, how do I do this on Instagram? I used to only look at the pretty pictures. What do I do now? You know what I mean? Like, how do I do this? And they would help me. And now they see, like, I've got it. I know it. You can't show me anything on any of the platforms. Okay, maybe not Snapchat, but any of the platforms. And I'm like, I get it. And they see that I started something, and I want them to remember that I started something long after I'd had all my education and training and a cushy job, that I started something new and I went out on a limb. So for me, that's successful. And because I have boys, showing them that, hey, women do this stuff. It's not just dudes that are out there doing all this entrepreneurial stuff. And you can, you may, if you decide to partner with a woman, here's a model, here's an example. You know what I mean? And if she's doing her thing, don't get in the way.
Oh my gosh. Oh, so good. So good. They're so lucky to have you as their mom and as a role model, showing them that anything's possible and whatever. I mean, like at even after having a long career doing something fulfilling, really inspirational. I have to check out your Instagram now to see. I'm like, what can I learn
Oh,
from Shannon for Instagram moves?
my Instagram moves, I know. They're probably, if they heard that, they'd be like, yeah, all right.
Oh my gosh, Shannon, so amazing to learn from you. This conversation can go on forever. I know that it can. But how can people get in touch with you? What are you offering right now? What are you teaching? Like how can people get in contact?
Yeah, so I'm at The Whole Budget on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn. You can find me there, Shannon Brome-Ward, and on thewholebudget.com. So I'm everywhere there. And basically, I work with private one-on-one clients, but I am going to be starting. I used to do a container called the Money Lounge, which was just female entrepreneurs and C-suite women. But I'm changing that. It's going to be a membership where we're going to be in the space where we can talk about money openly. We can talk about money where you don't have to hide that you might want to make money. You might want to make more of it. You enjoy spending it. You want to learn about investing it without any judgment or, questions about or comments like must be nice. It's like, yeah, it is nice. It's a very, very nice. And I want everyone to experience it. It's very nice. So yeah, I want to have that that space where we do that. And it's also a space where people can learn about other things and be in the community with women who are doing what they're doing, or want to do something similar. I think it's great to have those connections, this kind of connections men have on the golf course.
Yeah.
So I want to create that space for women where those discussions are just out there and we are usually left out of the conversation.
So amazing. Everyone, go check out Shannon's stuff, Shannon's work. Just super inspirational. Shannon, last word, for the entrepreneurial woman out there that wants to like get wealthy, be abundant, have that surplus, like what do you want to tell them? Like, because I want more more women entrepreneurs or women professionals, whoever you are, to be wealthy so you can go live the life that you want and go serve. And like I just love the idea of surplus. I'm like, yes, I want some surplus, please.
Absolutely. What I would say is do it scared.
Hmm.
Just do it scared.
Shannon, you're always welcome back on the show. I can't wait to hear more about the work that you're doing, helping women entrepreneurs, women in the C-suite, and just the community that you're creating, online and offline, to just make more money and live at peace. I love what you're doing. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. This was so much fun. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Thank you.